Hello, welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and this is our early review of the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. So the Endorphin Trainer is the successor to the Kinvara Pro. It's been moved between Saucony silos, and I think it's fair to say it fits a bit more naturally into the Endorphin silo as opposed to the Kinvara, which has always been a pretty low stack, low tech shoe. This is a high stack shoe with a lot of tech going on in the midsole, and I guess it's designed to be in the Endorphin range as a more cushioned version almost of the Endorphin Speed 4 that can handle a lot more daily mileage and might suit a different kind of runner. It's an expensive shoe. It's $180. Don't have the UK price confirmed yet, but the Kinvara Pro is £200 as well as being $180, so that might be the same as here. It weighs in at 296 grams or 10.4 ounces. That's in the UK 8.5, which is a US 9.5. It's got an 8mm drop and a stack height of 42mm at the heel, 34mm at the forefoot. So with the design of the Endorphin Trainer, you've got an engineered mesh upper, quite a lot of padding around the tongue and heel of the shoe, pretty substantial internal heel counter as well to add more structure at the back there. You've got a midsole that's made up of two different foams. With the Kinvara Pro, the top layer was PWRRUN PB, but you've now got Saucony's new TPEE foam Incredirun on the top, which is the same foam we've got on the Endorphin Elite 2. That's a really soft and springy foam, and in order to add stability to a shoe that's designed for more mileage compared to something like the Endorphin Elite racing shoe, you've got a big bottom layer of PWRRUN foam, which is an EVA foam. It's a lot firmer, a lot denser, a lot more stable than the Incredirun stuff on the top. And between those foams, you've got a 3/4 length carbon plate in the shoe, and you've got Saucony's speed roll geometry, as you'd expect really from an Endorphin shoe. It's one of the reasons this shoe fits more naturally into the Endorphin range than the Kinvara range, I'd say. That EVA bottom layer also acts as most of the outsole on the bottom of the shoe there, but you do have little bits of rubber on the key toe off and kind of heel striking areas there to add durability.
Okay, so if this shoe has anything going for it, it's fit for me. It's a really comfortable shoe. I really like this upper design. It's quite comfortable, quite malleable, quite flexible. There's loads of space in the forefoot. There's loads of space towards the sides of the forefoot. And I found it very easy to get a nice lockdown fit. There's plenty of padding around it. Quite like the tongue. That's quite. It's cushioned enough, but not too chunky. And I found it really easy to get a nice, comfortable fit in this. Very much enjoyed that first run based on the fit of the shoe, and I definitely say to my size in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer.
First things first. These shoes super comfortable. I love Saucony's uppers and the fit and the way that it's very easy. Once you slip your foot into them, they tend more often than not to feel really comfortable from the off, like disappearing fit, good balance in the heel collars of padding and plushness. The tongues and the uppers leave plenty of clearance across the top of the toes. They fit my kind of wider feet really well as well. They never really, or mainly never feel too snug. Get exactly that here with the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. It's a really easy, unfussy shoe to put on and head out.
So it comes to the fit of the shoe. I've got a UK 8.5 here, so I'm usually either an 8.5 or a 9 in Saucony shoes, and with the Endorphin Trainer, an 8.5 has fitted me perfectly well. I've got enough room in the toes. Maybe could have gone for the size 9, had even more room, but it's certainly spacious enough for me based on my 2 runs so far, and a good hold around the heel and midfoot. With some of the more racy Saucony shoes, like the Endorphin Elite 2, for example, I did need a UK 9, but with the Endorphin Trainer, I was happy enough in the UK 8.5, which is the same size I've also got in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, if that's any reference. So generally, I'm in between two sizes, and I think either of those sizes would have been fine in the Endorphin Trainer. I don't think it's a shoe with a troubling fit all round, so probably stick to your normal size is what I'd say.
So when I got this shoe, I wasn't very excited. The previous version of it, or the earlier version that this takes learnings from, which is the Kinvara Pro, I did not like. I did not enjoy that shoe at all. I found it to be like a big block of quite hard rubber that didn't really do a lot for me. It felt like running in clogs. I was pretty honest about my feelings around that shoe, and I used it for a race. I used it for quite a lot of different training sessions. I did not really enjoy any of them. It just didn't work for me. It didn't feel very comfortable. And I couldn't quite work out what Saucony were trying to do with the Kinvara Pro. Also didn't like the fact that they called it the Kinvara Pro. The first run I've done in this was a 5-mile run. Fairly easy. Ran it at about 5-minute kilometers, which is pretty comfortable for me. I did pick up the pace a little bit just to see how it felt. And there's probably 2 ways I can go with this review. So the first one is I think it is an improvement on the Kinvara Pro, which it takes learnings from. I definitely noticed the difference with this Incredirun foam in there. It's a bit softer than what I experienced in the Kinvara Pro. You can feel that on the run. It's a bit more comfortable. And as a result, it wasn't a bad experience. I enjoyed that running it. I definitely felt like it was a bit more, there's a bit more energy in it. It felt a little bit bouncier to me. I noticed that it's not as firm as the previous version, so it did feel like there's a little bit more to this shoe. And also I like the heel to toe transition in it. It felt like I was moving along quite nicely. It felt like it was helping me a bit go forward. So when comparing it with the Kinvara Pro, I think it is an improvement. I think that Incredirun foam does make a difference to the ride. Now, if I'm reviewing it as a standalone shoe and comparing it with other shoes out in the market, it's still a weird shoe. It's definitely a shoe that I'm not quite sure what Saucony is going for with this. The only thing I can think is that it's a training shoe designed for heavier runners. That firmer midsole in there, I'm not getting the best out of that. I don't think I'm compressing it in any way. It still feels quite clunky. It still feels quite hard. And definitely isn't a shoe that I pick up for faster training sessions, because I just don't seem to be getting what's best out of this shoe. This PWRRUN foam underneath the Incredirun it must be one of the firmest foams that I've ever tried, and it really does. I'm definitely not getting the best out of what this is designed for. I think if you may be a heavier runner, you might compress that a bit more, but it's a very hard foam to compress, and you can really feel that out on the run. The addition of the Incredirun does make it a little bit more of an accessible shoe, and I definitely didn't mind running in it on that run. So as a standalone shoe, I do think it's a strange one, and I'm not quite sure what it's designed for. I think for the price, it's going up against some really, really good shoes, and if it's a trainer designed for faster pace training, for daily miles where you may be up in the pace and doing tempo sessions, interval sessions, things like that, I don't think it's a particularly good option. But if you really liked the Kinvara Pro and that worked for you, and you wanted a little bit more softness in it, a bit more injury return, you do get that with this shoe. So it is an improvement on the previous version, but as a standalone shoe, I'm not quite sure what it's going for. But having said that, I did not dislike it on that run. I found it relatively enjoyable to run in, and was pleasantly surprised with the updates with that new foam that's been added into it. The outsole of the shoe, there's not a lot of rubber on the bottom of this shoe, but that's because this PWRRUN foam is really thick and sturdy. So I think Saucony are based on the principle it doesn't need rubber because this foam is so hard and probably quite durable. But they have stuck a couple of bits of rubber on the front and back for traction. Didn't really notice the difference on that. On the run I did, it was fairly wet. It was raining, and it felt absolutely fine on the wet roads that I was on, but I didn't really put it through any really tough tests. I wasn't shifting around corners really quickly or anything, but it seemed fine on that run. But it's not got a lot of grippy rubber on, so this exposed midsole, this PWRRUN midsole, is not very grippy. So I imagine that if you did take it on some pretty tough conditions, then you're probably going to notice that.
So I've done 2 runs in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer so far. First was a very easy recovery 7-miler day after a session, and I've also done another mostly easy hour in the shoe as well. I was not a big fan of the Kinvara Pro. I found it just a bit heavy, a bit clunky, a shoe that didn't really have a lot of life to it, and I have to say so far I'm not that impressed with the Endorphin Trainer either. It feels like a pretty similar shoe all round, despite the fact you've got the new Incredirun foam in the midsole, which is a foam I really like on the Endorphin Elite 2. It's very soft and bouncy on that shoe, and it really delivers a very lively ride, a very interesting and fun ride. But with the Endorphin Trainer, you've just got this big bottom layer of PWRRUN foam that just dampens, I think, a lot of the fun out of the Incredirun layer you have in the midsole. And it's very much the predominant feeling you get on the run is from the PWRRUN foam rather than the Incredirun foam, I'd say. I don't really think you're getting enough of a layer there to really enjoy a nice sinking and cushioned feeling at the heel. Like, it is comfortable, but you don't really get a big squidgy feeling like you do on the Elite, and you don't really get a big responsive toe off either. So far I've just been ticking along in it, mostly at easy paces, and it does that okay, but it doesn't really have the most fun or lively ride, even for those easy runs. And yeah, I don't really think you're going to get a lot of response at faster paces either. Another thing I've noticed after a couple of runs so far is that this is a loud shoe. It's a stompy shoe, it's a clompy shoe. You definitely feel that and hear it on the run as well. Like, I was running around Hyde Park in this, turning heads, in the same way you do when you're running something like the Alpha Fly, but not something you necessarily want in a daily trainer. So yeah, certainly first impressions would be that it's pretty similar to the Kinvara Pro, which is just a shoe that it doesn't really suit me as a runner. Like, I prefer lighter shoes if I'm going to go and do something and pick up the pace. I don't really know what the plate is doing in this shoe for me, because it's certainly stable enough without the plate, I'd say, because of this big PWRRUN layer, and I don't think it's adding a lot of like life and propulsion or anything like that. So if anything, just adds probably another layer of firmness into the area it's covering, and again just reduces the fun feeling you might get from this Incredirun foam. So all round, not so impressed so far with the Endorphin Trainer, but I'll get out for some more runs and see if it changes my mind over the course of our full review.
So I'm just back from my first run in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. I did a 4.5 miler. I was going to mix up the paces. I took a bit on the road, and then I hit the river path here by the Thames. When you get moving, I never like to judge a shoe from the very first run totally. because today, I don't know if it was just me that was tired, but the first impressions here are that this shoe, it's a little bit soft and a bit sluggish, a bit slappy. It's got a bit of nimbus going on here. You know, it's got that kind of sort of super sort of soft, kind of high cushioned feel to it, which today I felt like it was, I'm quite tired, but I felt it was slightly draining. I wanted something to give me a little bit of extra energy today, even though for parts of this I felt like this had to sort of turn into more of a recovery run. I did try and push the paces up, but I wasn't really getting back what I needed from it in order to do that today. I definitely think that I will test that again, though. It might just be me being sluggish. You know, it's the replacement for the Kinvara Pro, and it had all those hallmarks of the Kinvara Pro, which is that you're going for kind of softness and cushioning and protection and cradling over any kind of energy or bounce. I wasn't getting that today from the shoe. If you do want that kind of cradling softness, the way that it sort of holds and cocoons the foot underneath is really there. I mean, that's really soft. It's really comfortable. It is really cushioned, and it does take the edge off the road. You know, you're not going to feel the road coming up through. I guess one of the things when I'm sort of coming from shoes like the Brooks Glycerin Max or shoes like that, there are shoes now where I feel like you get that cushion and you get a little bit more back as well. And for me on this run, I just wasn't getting that. So jury's firmly out on it. I think for a kind of easy, slow plodder, it's got potential. What I really want to know is whether or not when you hit kind of cruising paces, whether it can do a job as well. My mind immediately springs to, can I use this for ultra as well on the road? You know, I used the Kinvara Pro when I did the Berlin Wall 100 miler the first time round for a big section of that, and it did a pretty good job for a while. This one I feel like it could do that same job as well. One other thing that I noticed when I went from the road to that kind of light trail, which is kind of almost like a compacted kind of stony path along the river, was that there is a bit of wobble in that softness of the midsole as well. Some of the stability wasn't quite there. I felt underfoot that there was a slight uncertainty from the big soft stack. Not so much on the road. When you're getting into kind of a surface which is, I guess, more reliable in terms of the surface, the shoes also felt more stable and more reliable, more consistent in that kind of landing through the transitions into toe off. But I did notice that when I went to those slight off roads.
So my early verdict on the Saucony Endorphin Trainer, it's an improvement if you're comparing it with the Kinvara Pro, which this takes learnings from, but it's not a massive improvement. I think it's softer. I think it's more comfortable. I think if you like the Kinvara Pro, then it is an improvement on the Kinvara Pro. I didn't like the Kinvara Pro, and I didn't mind that run in it. So it's definitely a shoe that is better than its predecessor. But I would say that it's still not the most amazing shoe in the world. If you were to compare this with shoes that are doing the same sort of thing, training shoes like the Super Blast 2, things like the Adidas Evo SL, shoes that are designed to do a bit more. You can do daily training in them, but you can do your faster sessions, your tempo sessions, all that sort of thing. I would not even look at this shoe as an option for those, because those shoes are far superior to this shoe when it comes to faster training. So I'm not entirely sure what this shoe is for still. I had no idea what the Kinvara Pro was for, but this shoe, I didn't mind that run. I think it was very comfortable. So it'd be an interesting one to test out over the next few weeks. I'm wondering if it's going to get a bit softer in that midsole, that PWRRUN midsole. The Kinvara Pro didn't. It retained its hard firmness throughout the duration of my testing. So it'd be interesting to see how this feels over the next few runs. I have a feeling that not a lot is going to change though, based on my experience of the previous shoe. So an improvement on the previous version, but not a shoe that I would advise anyone to get based off of that first run.
Early verdict is that the Endorphin Trainer still feels a lot like the Kinvara Pro to me, and for me that isn't a positive, just because I didn't really enjoy running in the Kinvara Pro much at any kind of pace, and I still feel this shoe lacks much life and fun underfoot, even on easy runs. Well, it can do those, and then I don't know if it's going to be all that responsive and fast for faster runs. Something we'll put to the test for our full review. Just think there's a lot of easy day cruisers out there that have fun rides and they have lower prices than this shoe as well. Like even Saucony has the Hurricane 24, which is a fair bit heavier and wider, and this probably will have a bit more life in it for fast runs, but I still don't really see it being an exceptionally versatile shoe, and just feels like there's a lot going on still in the midsole, like there was with the Kinvara Pro, but the end result is just a shoe that you probably just use for ticking along at easy paces, and with all this stuff in the midsole, you maybe expect a little bit more for that, especially if you are looking at $180 price tag, if it is also £200 in the UK. Now, if you look at some of the equivalent, like big max cushioned super trainers with plates that lean more towards daily training, there's the stuff like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and the Hokamak X2, like a great fast super trainers. They probably lean more speed focused, whereas this is more in the category, I think, of something like the Brooks Hyperion Max Max 2, or the Mizuno Neo Vista, even the Nike Zoom Fly 6, the New Balance SC Trainer V3. Just all those shoes, I think, are more fun, more lively underfoot, more versatile. They're lighter. They definitely have more about them for faster runs, but also slightly more fun rides at easy paces as well, with softer foams and that kind of thing. And this just feels a bit in between those and then full cushion shoes. And I don't know if it's a niche that necessarily needs filling. I just didn't get enough life out of the midsole, even with this new foam in, which I do think is a good foam. But like I say, it's still early days. I've only done a couple of runs. We'll do some more testing and see if the Endorphin Trainer turns me around. But for the moment, it's not one I'd be really going for in Saucony's range. Or if you want a big cushy trainer like this, something like the Mizuno Neo Vista is a lot more fun and even cheaper as well.
Yeah, so first impressions, there are things I like about this shoe. I like the comfort on the foot. I like the way it disappears in terms of the way the uppers feel, the way you get the lockdown, the way the heels hold, all of that kind of stuff. There's nice plushness and sort of balance to it. It does that upper bit really well. Underfoot, I think it's got a perfectly good, soft, cushioned ride. What I'm wondering, or what I didn't find today, was maybe enough bounce. And I think that could be a limiter. So my first impressions are, I'm a little bit worried that it's only going to have a couple of gears, this shoe. And there are quite a lot of shoes now that have more gears. So that is my first initial instinct. As I said before, it might be that I'm tired and I didn't have any gears today. But yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to put to the test. It goes into the mix with a lot of very competitive shoes that are doing something along these lines, with a big high stack, lots of cushion. Some of them I think give more bounce. That's my initial reaction, or a bit more energy. So for me, it's kind of middling on that kind of first impressions. I'm not writing the shoe off though. I do want to do more. I'm just judging it against some shoes that I think might just offer a bit more, but we will see when we do the full review. More miles needed in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer to really test that out.